New Jersey,
connecting faith and life. And you're watching Realfaith TV!
I think people enjoy being in the spotlight because it gives them like a feeling of power and they feel they're important.
They want to have influence on people and they want to be able to get their ideas across.
Today I think anyone has a chance to become famous because social media connects us.
The difference between a celebrity and a 15-minute celebrity is probably just like a 15-minute celebrity is Insta famous or Vine famous. An example of someone with 15 minutes of fame would probably be last year with the white and gold or blue and black dress. It was blue and black, just in case.
Some people have their 15 minutes of fame, like Chris Matthews, who played for the Seattle Seahawks in Super Bowl 48 against the Patriots. He hadn't played before, but had his first catch and continued to have 4 catches for 109 yards. But after that, his career never resurfaced.
And an actual celebrity is someone that goes to like red carpet events or stars in a movie.
I admire LeBron James because he came up from nothing. He never really had his parents throughout his life, and people doubted him, but he worked hard to get where he is today.
Being famous can change people because they can get caught up with like the money, and also the power of being famous can go to their heads. And then you have the temptation of being involved with like drugs and everything.
With like fame and faith, balance is a big part of it because you can't get too consumed in the fame because you have to keep your faith. So that way you like stay with God, but also use that fame to do good things for God.
Famous people are inspirations to everyone, so they're looking up to these famous people, and it could show us that, hey, like maybe we could all look up to God like they do.
Jesus' humility that he maintained through all of his fame and all of the doubts people had for him is a good example for us on how to keep ourselves humble and true to God's word like he did.
There's many ways that we can keep ourselves from being full of ourselves by giving back to communities, helping others in need.
We could be good people in the spotlight too, like it doesn't have to consume us.
The acclaimed artist and American pop icon Andy Warhol is quoted as saying,
"In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes.
While he may have said this statement back in 1968, at a time when this idea seemed to be far-fetched,
It's not such a strange concept now in a media saturated with reality TV stars, Facebook phenoms, and YouTube sensations.
Maybe you or someone you know got a brief taste of the limelight.
However, as with everything, fame is fleeting, here today and gone tomorrow.
How we choose to make ourselves known to the world, whether knowingly or inadvertently, can say a lot about who we are and what we believe.
Your 15 minutes of fame. What would you do? That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi, I'm Michael.
And I'm Juliana.
And this is Realfaith TV.
We'd like to thank the students from Immaculata High School in Somerville, New Jersey for helping us open our show today.
And for sharing their views on being famous, whether as a celebrity or just for 15 minutes.
We'll hear from them again as a part of our wild card segments, but first, let's meet our spotlight guest, Monsignor Jim Vaughn.
Monsignor is the president and CEO of Telecare Television, as well as a host for numerous Catholic television and radio programs.
He'll talk about his experience of being a recognizable media personality.
And how he likes to use his notoriety to bring people together.
I'm on television about 3 hours a day, so that does make you recognizable a lot of times in the public arena. I think, there's a tremendous responsibility when you're in any kind of public position to do good things. And so one of the things I'm able to do is network people together so that they can help people who are in need, so they can find help for people maybe who might not be able to find help some other way. I feel a tremendous responsibility to do good and to be present to people. And I'm not ashamed at all about wearing this, so I'm proud to wear this out, and proud when people recognize me and come over and say, yeah, because I represent Jesus, I represent the church, and that's a great gift. Not only is there a lot of responsibility, but also there's a lot of temptation to think about what people say sometimes and believe a lot of that, and say, wow, you're great and all of this. But I think, we have great examples before us all the time, like Pope Francis, for example, who is someone who's in the public far more than I will ever be in the public, and yet such a humble man, right? So grounded. I like being surrounded by honest people so that they don't give you kind of this line that you would think about the emperor's new clothes. Nobody's being honest with you and everybody's kind of lying. I want to be an effective minister, and if I'm not being effective, somebody needs to tell me that, and that's a big help. I never shirk away from that. It keeps you rooted in what's important. What's important is not being known. What's important is making the word known through you, no matter who you are. If you are the president of your student council, you have to take that really into consideration, how you live your life, how you live your life on the weekend, how you live your life at a Sweet 16. It all matters because people are looking. I would take that even one degree further. And you say, well, I'm a baptized Catholic. Well, okay, great. How am I living my life? The old song, they'll know we are Christians by our love. Would anybody know anything about us and our faith by how we live our lives? We need faith to keep us humble because faith helps us to recognize that it's about God, it's not about us. So no matter what we're doing, whether it's on a stage, whether it's on a TV set, whether it's with headphones in a radio station, it doesn't matter. What it's about is the motivation behind that. And if you stay rooted in faith, I think you're safe. If we start to believe the hype, if we start to believe that it's about us and not about God, that's when we start to get off track.
I think it was really cool how he talked about how Pope Francis he's in media and on TV all the time, and he stays so humble.
Yeah, I think it's also really cool how he stays humble and he uses his faith to ground him.
Well, let's see what our studio guests have to say about this topic.
Okay, they are
Joe,
Ryan,
Megan,
Lauren,
Amanda,
Mateo,
and Kevin. So do you guys think that most people want to be famous? Do you guys?
I think most people today do want to be famous because a lot of people work really hard in the crafts and what they do, and they feel like being famous and having fame like that will be a way to show everyone how hard they work. And I know for me as an athlete, for basketball, you always want to get noticed and you want to be at the top, and fame kind of helps you get there almost.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of social media platforms like Instagram and Snapchat, they're kind of trying to market fame because people are attracted to it and they want to be famous.
Social media only shows us the glamorous side of fame. It doesn't show us the negative side. So that's why everybody wants to be famous.
Well, there's no question that being famous has its perks.
Attending award shows and benefits.
Performing for adoring fans.
Being on the cover of magazines.
Many of us probably envision a dream lifestyle of wealth and popularity with opportunities at every turn.
Let's face it, we all want to be accepted, acknowledged, and loved for who we are and what we want to achieve.
The trick is keeping our feet on the ground on our way to the top.
That can be really tricky, keeping your feet on the ground on the way to the top.
So true, and staying true to our ideals and beliefs.
Definitely. Next, our spotlight guest, Monsignor Jim, talks to us about the attractiveness of fame.
And gives us some insight into his 10-to-1 theory that can help us choose faith over fame.
I think fame is a fleeting thing. It's sort of like, having a hamburger at a barbecue. It's delicious while you're eating it, but it doesn't stick with you much longer than that. If you have some kind of notoriety, then again, there's a tremendous responsibility with that. So I kind of have this theory, I call it a 10-to-1 theory, that if we're nice to people, and good to people and we're holy with other people, well, they tell 10 people that. But at the same time, if we're cruel or rude or if we're, gossiping about other people, well, they tell 10 other people too. So in this world, this 10-to-1, I think, makes a big difference, that we really need to treat each other carefully and beautifully. And when you have some kind of notoriety, there's even a greater sensitivity I think we have to have about how you treat other people. Well, one of the things I do is I work as the chaplain for the New York Jets. And I've seen lots and lots of football players come, and I've seen lots and lots of football players go, And one of the things when I have the privilege of being able to speak to the players that I say is that your notoriety is not going to be forever, more than likely. So what do we do with it while we have it? Are you able to take time and spend time with the little boy who's waiting outside the hotel for you to sign his football right now? Do you take time to take the selfie with people? Do you take time to make people understand that they matter and that they're as good as you are? You're no different than they are. We're all the same. And there's something beautiful about that. I go back to the Holy Father. He does that, right? He takes the selfies. He spends time with people. I think today in this world, we sensationalize a lot of people who have the public public eye, and there's a lot of pressure on them. So their lives are not as human as they probably should be. And so when they have difficulty in a marriage, when they have difficulty in a relationship, it's public and everybody knows about that. That's a very hard way to live. I think, again, part of that is being rooted. And I think that kind of fame without faith, you get in trouble right away, because you start to believe that you're it. You start to believe that you're above the law. You start to believe that you're above the same gospel rules that we all live by every day of the week. So it's about being rooted, I think, in faith that helps us to deal with this fame or this notoriety that some celebrities in this world have. And there's lots of celebrities that do have that faith, and it makes a big difference in their life.
How do you think being famous changes people, especially in regards to their faith?
Well, I mean, like Monsignor was saying, like, celebrities are under constant pressure all the time. Like, every little slip up that they make is like blown up to be seen as like a scandal almost. That's why, like, sometimes they turn to, like, you know, drugs, they have failed marriages, stuff like that, because they don't know how to deal with the pressure. So I think keeping the faith is important so you know how to deal with that pressure.
I definitely agree. Like, celebrities have a lot of expectations to live up to.
And sometimes that does happen, and that is sad. But sometimes celebrities do stay grounded. They still talk to God, they still pray, they stay connected with their family and their friends. And those are the celebrities that I like, really.
One athlete, Russell Wilson, he goes to Children's Hospital every Tuesday to just be with the kids, and he feels like that's the way to stay grounded as a celebrity who people look up to.
I think sometimes we forget, though, like, if we ever do make it to fame, everybody just asks God for more and more, and we forget to thank him sometimes, which is really important. With video capability on every device and social media being our primary source of information and entertainment, the opportunity for our 15 minutes can happen at any second.
The situations that we find ourselves in and how we react to them can show the world the types of people we are.
Let's meet our first wildcard guest, Annie, who will relate the story of how a scuffle on the high school football field led to an injury going viral.
When football season began on September 11th, it was in the second quarter, and there was a scuffle that happened at the end of an offensive play for our team. One of the Linden players took the helmet off of one of our teammates' boys' heads and proceeded to bash him in the head with it. This video created a massive social media frenzy, being picked up on World Star, Bleacher Report, and even ESPN. The boy that was hit in this fight, and he is just a funny, caring, loving person, and he handled it so well. He was very humble about it. He did not retaliate at all. Despite not retaliating, this boy did suffer some injuries. He did have to get 20 stitches in the head and was sidelined from play for a week. He just acted like nothing really went wrong, and he didn't really seem to care about the whole 15 minutes of fame thing.
Do you know someone who unexpectedly got their 15 minutes of fame from how they either acted or reacted from a situation?
Yeah, I know somebody. It was this girl in my school. Yeah, she got in this fight, and like the whole school got around, so everybody took out their phones and started recording it, right? But like she mopped the floor with this girl. So like it got on World Star, and then it had Twitter pages. But let me tell you, like what she did was dumb. And that 15 minutes of fame is not really fame if you're gonna do something dumb. Like you gotta do something that's humble, respectable, like stuff so people could look up to you. So I really don't think that's 15 minutes of fame if y'all think that's 15 minutes of fame, because that's really not. But that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, you really want your 15 minutes of fame to be a reflection of who you are as a person, and you want it to really represent who you are.
I think there's a woman you guys might know. She was on the news and there was a fire, and she said, "Ain't nobody got time for that." And it started trending into remixes and other videos, and it got famous for the wrong reason. But there's like many like ways to become famous, like positive or negative.
Yeah, I've seen that video like 100 times.
Too bad she's gone now.
Yeah. Social networks like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram give us a platform that make us feel like celebrities, surrounded by people who constantly support and encourage us, no matter what we post.
It's easy for this sort of fame to go to our heads and give us a false sense of reliability and completeness.
As Catholic Christians, we understand that our completeness comes from Jesus Christ, from Him and Him alone.
And that our lives, no matter how public or private, are not meant to serve our own individual wants or needs, but to serve others.
Let's go back to Monsignor Jim, where he'll talk about how he uses his fame as a priest to bring the sacraments to others.
I get recognized a lot out in public, and you know when I often get recognized? When I have something going into this mouth of mine, and somebody will say, oh, look at you, Monsignor, eating another slice of pizza. I like that a lot to meet people, though, and I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy spending time with people. A number of times people have come up to me and spoken to me about very serious issues. So I'll give you a quick story. I'm a bit of a fan of Jimmy Buffett, you know, so people call Jimmy Buffett fans parrot heads, right? So I've been going to the concerts for over 20 years. And I was at a concert last summer, and somebody came up to me and they said, you're Monsignor Jim from TV, right? And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, would you have time to hear my confession? So I said, well, the concert's going to start in a few minutes, you know. He said, well, I'll be fast. So I went off to the side, and we stood there, and I heard his confession. And I gave him a hug, and he went back to his seat. And then another guy came up to me and said, did you just hear that man's confession? So I didn't know what to say, you know, because we're not ever supposed to talk about anything. And I said, yeah, I figured that was public. And he said, could I go too? So I wound up hearing 3 confessions before the Jimmy Buffett concert that night. So it's incredible how it can really be something beautiful that can happen when you meet people too. And it's just that openness to say, hey God, whatever the course is, whatever it's supposed to be, that's what's supposed to be tonight, you know? Over the years, you know, I've had the opportunity to interview for television or for radio, lots of different people who would be, I guess, celebrities, we would call them, you know? But ultimately, when you get to know people, and I think when you treat them as if they are just human beings, there's a great kind of veil that opens up, and we get to see that these people are flesh and blood and heart and soul, just like you and I, created just like us in the image of God, and trying and struggling to find their way in this world. So there's something, I think, very important about us being able to see that common humanity that we share. And I have found many times in my speaking with celebrities, if you will, that there's something about them that they want to be able to identify with that. They want to be able to say, yeah, you know what, I am just like you. You know what, I am not that different. And there's something very important about that. That has actually caused me to have some longer relationships with some of those folks because they don't have a lot of people in their life, perhaps, who treat them normally.
What do you guys think our faith teaches us about being famous?
I think our faith not only teaches us to enjoy the position we're in, but to be thankful, because there's a lot of people who would love to be in the position you're in and be famous, especially in 15 minutes. But I think the faith just says to be thankful and pray.
I think the faith says pretty much just not to change your attitude, to be yourself in front of the camera. You know, don't really like be someone different because you know who you are and you want to be who you are. You don't want to change your position on life pretty much. So.
But when you're famous, like you just want to like have your faith with you, like at all time. Like you don't want to change yourself. You know, like you want to just be who you are.
John the Baptist, who baptized Jesus, is someone who didn't let 15 minutes of fame go to his head.
He knew he had a small but important role in Jesus' ministry on earth.
After baptizing Jesus, in the Gospel of John, chapter 3, he says, "So this joy of mine has been made complete.
He must increase, I must decrease."
As his fame decreased, he continued to serve the Lord and lead others to Christ.
Next, Monsignor shares some stories about some of the celebrities of faith he has encountered along his journey,
as well as what he has learned about understanding our talents as gifts from God meant to be shared.
I have a couple of beautiful stories of people who, you know, I guess the public would know that I've really, I don't know, had a great experience in a sense with God and shared that with me. You know, one would be James Taylor. He's a very notable singer. I think, you know, everybody knows he sings that song, You've Got a Friend. I remember meeting him one time and speaking with him about, he had a terrible addiction to heroin and managed to, with the help of God, get straight. And he was just going on to stage. I was going to see him in concert, and he asked if I would come and if I would give him a blessing. So I said, sure, I'd be glad to, you know. And I went to bless him. He got on his knees, which I thought was a beautiful moment, you know. Like in a backstage setting, there's like 30 or 40 people backstage. They're rushing. The whole place got quiet. You know, I think that's something like the right context. Yeah, you know what? You're a musician, you're a writer, you've written some beautiful music. You're also an addict who's recovering still to this very day, and yet, you know, you need God. You know, that's beautiful. And those kinds of things are inspirational to me. One of the people I like a lot is Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. He knows struggle very much in his life, but at the same time, he's also a man of tremendous faith. I spoke to Brian last summer, and he said, I have a gift for you, Monsignor, I want to give you. And he took out a piece of paper, and it was the score of the song God Only Knows, which is a famous Beach Boys song. And he said, I want to write my name and sign this to you. And he said, it's my favorite song that I ever wrote because I got to mention God in it. And I said, that's beautiful. I said, it's my favorite song of yours too. He goes, it's a beautiful way for us to recognize that God is with us when we're able to place him into our work. And that from a guy who has struggled with addiction, struggled with a lot of things in his life, but still knowing that God is there. And that's what I admire in celebrities who are able to, even though they may have struggled, even though maybe they're far away from what we would consider conventional faith, if they can name God and place that in their lives, we got some hope. I'm the chaplain for the Jets, so Tim Tebow was part of our team. We all know that Tim, when he kneels down and he does the Tebow move, they love that. Anything that brings God into the picture, no matter where we are, it can't be a bad thing, right? Remember Jesus said, those who aren't against us, they're with us. So, we got to recognize that. You win an Oscar, you stand up there and you thank God, that's a good idea. I think that's a smart thing to do, because that's what it's all about. It's not about your talent, it's the talent God gave you and that you're using well.
I really like Monsignor's story about how he blessed James Taylor before the concert. And sometimes we see celebrities as these perfect people, like they're never nervous about their concerts. They have everything going for them. But I mean, the truth is, they're still nervous before their concerts. They still need God's blessing. They need God's help to get through their daily life, because they struggle just as the rest of us do, and they might struggle even more because of the amount of pressure they're under.
Yeah, I think it was really cool that he mentioned the story about James Taylor when he said that he battled a heroin addiction, because I think how hard must it be for him being in the spotlight and then battling an addiction. For the normal person, you kind of can get help and stuff, but then you're in the public eye and then people see that and they know that.
Jesus certainly was famous in his time, and in the 2,000 years since, it seems like he's more popular than ever.
Through miraculous healings, radical preaching, and admonishing, suffering through the passion,
rising from the dead and establishing the church, the main hallmark of his life and actions was love.
Famous or not, as followers of Christ, this should be our main goal, to fill our life with actions of love. Let's go to our second wildcard guest, David, a popular football player at his school.
He will share how his faith and his parents' example helped him to stay humble.
Well, for me, my faith helps me to remain humble because my parents, they show me exactly what to do every single day. They pray with me. They go to church. They're deacon and deaconesses at the church that I go to. They have enrolled me into this Catholic high school, best decision of their lives for me. They're just living role models for me to follow every day. And my faith helps me to really remain humble because I don't like to boast about anything I ever do. I feel like I'm a very responsible person. I always love to give back. I hate doing things just for me. I just feel that when you put all your faith in God, there's no downside to that. One of my favorite Bible verses, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, is one verse that I really live by, because Jesus Christ is one person you need in your life.
I like how David's parents helped connect him with his faith, and I can relate to that because my parents also do the same. They want me to really express my faith, and they want me to pray, pretty much be involved in the church, yeah.
Lastly, our spotlight guest, Monsignor Jim, discusses Jesus' notoriety when he walked the earth.
And how modern examples of people of faith have achieved fame through simple humility.
Jesus' notoriety is really all about humble service. And he was never the person who wanted to take the big bow, never the star. He became the star because other people wanted him to be the superstar, if you will, to quote the Broadway Jesus, But there's something about his life was about humble service. And that's kind of what keeps me rooted all the time, to never forget the reason why I think the Lord called me is so that I could serve him with my life, not so that I could, be on television or be on radio, I think also not just of the Lord, I think of the lives of the saints and the humble ways in which they serve. Somebody like Mother Teresa, for example, of Calcutta, who was a very simple woman, never wanted the spotlight, and what happened? The more she didn't want the spotlight, the more she was thrust into the spotlight. And then through her own simple life, she called others to a life of faith because they could just see humility in her life. Actually, people were uncomfortable with her because she was so humble and so simple. That's beautiful. And I think of people who I've come to know and admire a lot. Archbishop Wensky of Miami, believe it or not, he rides a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. And he's a motorcycle guy, loves motorcycles. But at the same time, like even though he knows a lot of motorcycle people because of that, they all know he's the Archbishop of Miami. You know, there's something amazing about that, right? Because he becomes an example, not just in the church, but also outside of his church, outside of his cathedral, to many, many people, you know? We have people like that who lead in our church all over, who don't give up what they love, but they take that notoriety and they allow it to lead others to Jesus. Life is so much about balance, isn't it? And I think all of us, even people who are somewhat in the front, because God has called them into the front, need time in the back and need time to unwind, need time to unplug. And I like the peace and the quiet. I get up early in the morning. I get up before 5 a.m. and I spend at least an hour in prayer and silence every day because I always pray that I'll be rooted in the peace of Christ and be rooted in that faith so that everything else I do throughout the day will kind of flow back to that moment, you know? And that's a big help for me because otherwise I think life could just be always putting out in a sense, and then you never charge the batteries up, you know, and eventually it starts to become very shallow. So that helps you to keep charged up properly.
I like the story told about Mother Teresa, how she was so humble where people actually got uncomfortable around her. And to be around someone like that who's so humble that you get uncomfortable is just like, wow, almost.
Because I think that people are kind of attracted to people that aren't like very like conceited and they're more humble. I think that people like that.
I like to be around respectable people because like they show me like what's the right thing to do. Like my father, for example, like my uncles, like they do the right things. So what he was saying up on the screen, I just look for the leaders in like my family around me.
And I also like what he said, how he prays to stay grounded, because even for everyone, that can be hard sometimes with work, with family, with friends. Things can get to us, we can get on the wrong track. But if we pray with God and stay connected with Him, we can always stay on the right track and make sure that He's always there with us.
There's nothing wrong with your 15 minutes of fame being about winning a sporting event or performing at the Met, or whatever your heart desires may be.
We glorify God when we use our gifts and talents for Him, and one of the ways that we do that is sharing them with others.
However, we must consider that the type of fame we are so used to seeing in our society is not the end-all and be-all.
Rather, how we love is the key to living the Christian life.
So what would you like to be famous for?
We want to hear from you.
Contact us at realfaithtv.com.
Or share your thoughts with us on Twitter.
And we'll leave you today with this.
St. Teresa of Lisieux wrote about the little way in her autobiography, Story of a Soul.
The little way simply means that you show love to the people right around you.
For her, this meant loving a cranky nun in her convent and writing plays for the sisters that made everyone laugh.
It meant doing the laundry when this was her chore, or preparing the altar for Mass.
And in all her tasks and encounters with others, she tried to show love.
So remember in all that you do, that you show love, especially if you have your 15 minutes of fame.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.